Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 4 of Children of the Vault, written by Denise Camp. But before we get started with the story, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel if you find anything interesting within the comics covered here, for with your help, this channel can grow and improve. So with that said, this issue opens right where issue number 3 ends, with Cable holding the brain of the city hostage, with a massive gun to its face. So with Cable in full control, we transition over to one of the random cities of tomorrow. And when we get there, we see a sentinel confronting one of the humans under the children's influence. Because to this child, the future has been good to him up to this point, because in recent days the future has changed him, because Rodrigo stopped feeling fear a week ago. Now he didn't do it because he wanted to, he did it because he was incapable of feeling emotion. And as a byproduct, he realized he no longer felt joy, anger, and all emotions in between. And to top everything off, he didn't even miss the past, nor did he miss anything before the children's arrival, which includes his name, village, how food tastes, and even his mother's face. So as the change starts to overcome the child, we transition over to Orchis's reforge located on the sun. Now on the surface of the sun, the reconstructed Orchis's mother mold births 1,000 sentinels an hour. For they are the main body of the Orchis attack force, with inexhaustible cavalry, artillery, and infantry all in one place. Because in the reforge, these repurchased mutant murder machines were sent to both the city and the tomorrow towns all over the planet. But despite how many sentinels are in circulation, the children somehow managed to destroy more than they could print. And on the bottom of the page, we get to see the children's response firsthand, as the childlike Muerte takes out a glowing crystal. And within a blink of an eye, the crystal causes the reforge to blow up in a massive explosion. So with Orchis's main printing press destroyed, we jump back over to the city, with Cable continuing his hostage situation with the city. And while that is going on, Serafina tells Cable to put his weapon down and talk to her like a civilized person. But see, Cable isn't about that, by no means, because he told her, the last time he has seen her, she dropped a battleship on his head. But that is when Serafina responded by saying that wasn't her, because she evolved since then, and following that she asked about Cannonball. Because back in X-Men 1999, she broke his heart after being together for a short time. But that is where Cable responds by saying he is dead, and before that he was happily married. So with Serafina's tactics going nowhere, Cable lets her know that he liked the old her better. But Serafina fires back by saying she could say the same thing about him because he's supposed to be a mutant freedom fighter. And now he's working with the same sapiens that killed his people. But see, one thing about Cable, Serafina fails to understand about his character is that Cable would make a deal with anyone he needs to in order to achieve his goals, even if it's the devil himself. Because from his perspective, both Orchis and the children are similar creatures. Now, at that moment, Capitan comes flying into the room and completely overpowered Cable. Because in his words, you can't overpower a city with a gun. Especially because every molecule of this city is sentient and alive. Which means Cable is completely surrounded by consciousness, with nowhere to hide. So as Capitan continues to beat the crap out of Cable, Serafina tries to break up the battle by saying she has the situation under control, because in another 10 seconds, she would have had control over Cable's arm. But that is when Capitan shouts out, enough, he is so tired of playing, he is so tired of the so-called human question. Because the only real question is what to do with the bodies. Because, according to Capitan, the world is promised to them. And at this point, Cable said stop crying over broken promises, because they really are acting like children. So with that out there, the Capitan replies with it's over, Orchis is finished and the message has reached its final stage. Which means they are ahead of schedule, and the human race won't see tomorrow. So following that, we get a breakdown of how the message is affecting everyone step by step. Because we pick up with a girl who has not been able to see for almost an hour, but at the same time she can feel her eyes running down her face. For in its final stages, the messages is all-consuming, all-transforming, because it is converting the human spirit into something more useful. Because the message renders the old human hierarchy meaningless, and in the end, it comes for everyone. And as for those who oppose or ignore the message, they too are implicated just as much as those who embrace it. Because at the end of the day, the message is the ultimate argument. And what comes after will be beyond even that. So when Luz flies over one of the cities, she thinks to herself that things will be over soon. So with recklessness, she shifts to coherent light as the world slows to a brilliant crawl. In this form, she cannot imagine the darkness, because everywhere she looks all she sees is light. So she allows the human sluggish projections to pass harmlessly through her, and as her glow dives deep into the dark pools of their eyes, their optic nerves burn up. And as for the people, all 12 of their brains turn to ash before they could process the sight of her. Once, generations ago, she would have sympathized with them as they fought for their lives. She might have even helped them. But see, that fearless girl who wanted to be free is gone. So, as Capitan continued to choke out Cable, Serafina let him know that the only thing he managed to accomplish was to make everything more painful for them. Because the message was their gift to humanity, the gift of elevation, and the gift of peace. But at that moment was when Bishop walked in the room and blasted Capitan off of Cable and said, "You people can keep your gifts, because all I see is you all talking about your new ideas." But all he has been seeing is the children handing out the same smallpox blankets in a new package. So Capitan, completely pissed off, he asked, "Why is it so hard for them to understand that we are the future?" Because from his perspective, two lonely mutants cannot fight the future. Which he is sadly mistaken, because that is what Bishop and Cable is known for doing. So with irritation at an all-time high, Capitan tells them they are only delaying the inevitable. In which Cable responds by saying more like stalling for time. But Cable had a trick up his sleeve, because out of nowhere the city started to go haywire. And right when that happens, we get a dialogue talking about one of the children of the vault. Because alone among the children, Diamante, the living memory, has no number, because each time he is reborn, he remains essentially unchanged, as a fixed observer standing outside of events. Now this makes him the ultimate historian, the future's past personified. 100,000 years of knowledge flowed through his crystal veins, so he is shocked to find, for the first time in his life, something new in his perfect body. So as he examined the flaws, it grew. It grew and grew until eventually, it consumed centuries of knowledge in seconds. He is Diamante, the historian. Even as he is devoured by the flaw, his crystal brain, consumed by horror, still carefully recorded every detail of the experience. For the flaw that consumed Diamante was the phalanx. So with the city infected, Cable states that 1,000 years in the future, there's a quiet little timeline where everything is the phalanx and the phalanx is everything. And as a younger, less cautious man, Cable risked assimilation to get a sample of the superstrain of techno-organic virus used to convert that universe. Because he thought it might come in handy someday. Now that is why, Cable always insisted on being brought back from the dead with his virus. And just to make sure he maintained his secret weapon, he kept a secret cache under the mansion. And on a side note, that was what Bishop was picking up in a previous issue. But anyway, that is when Cable brings up how every molecule of the city is one big brain, which means every inch of it is a potential exposure site. So while Cable was making his way to the heart of the city, he made sure to spread the virus all over the place. And the way he was able to do it was by using his massive weapon, because the weapon he had was not a gun but a syringe. So whenever he is set and done, Cable told Sarah Fan to think of it as a gift. A piece for it already had corrupted the core AI and converted 10% of the city to technical organic matter. And at this rate, the entire city and everything, and it will be in a vertical route converted in 24 hours. And the crazy part about this whole thing is, this is just the early symptoms. Which is basically a walking apart compared to what comes next. Because once the virus converts enough material into technology organic matter, it will become a Babel spiral and send a signal to the Technarch, which is a cannibal world that feeds on solar systems. So if the children thought fighting a city was hard, imagine fighting a predator planet. So with the information out there, Sarah Finn let them know that this would not give Cable nor Bishop the victory because the city already has the virus in their database, which means shortly the city will start fighting back against the infectee. Now, at that point, the children believed they had Cable and Bishop both in check. But that was when Cable asked Bishop about how his mission went. Which Bishop said it was an accomplishment. Because just to add context to this, Bishop went into the nursery, and while there, he was able to set a whole bunch of bombs all around the nursery that is able to destroy the next generation's entire genetic library. Which means if the virus doesn't kill them all, then the giant mushroom cloud coming from their birthing chambers would. So with that revelation, this causes Serafina to tell Bishop she believes he's bluffing because a mutant like him would never kill a whole bunch of babies. But that was when Bishop tells her that he wished he was the kind of person not to kill a child. But if you ever read any Bishop comic books in the late 90s, you realize he is completely down for trying to do what needs to be done to accomplish his goals. So with both sides at a standstill, Cable tells him that his people are all dead, and the humans are responsible the way he sees it. So from Cable's point of view, everyone will get what they deserve, and as for him and Bishop, they can just start over in another timeline. Because at the end of the day, the Capitan is correct. The X-Men would never do something like this, but to the best of their knowledge, the X-Men were pushed into the meat grinder. So to be honest, there are no more X-Men, they're just two old soldiers with not much to lose. So maybe you're right, maybe we are bluffing, but could you really risk it given their history? So with Bishop and Cable having the children and checkmate, they were forced to submit to their terms, which was packing up their entire city and returning to the vault. Now with Seraphina, the voice of the city, defeated, she spoke for the city with their surrender. So with the message self-destructing, all who consumed the truth is reduced to empty catchphrases. Once potent symbols are torn down and forgotten, because now tomorrow will never come and something else would rush in to take his place. Both sides laid down their arms and collected their dead. And before they left, Seraphina states that Capitan was right because he always said that she was too gentle and magnanimous in this incarnation. And because of that, she suspects that she won't be in the future. Because to her, they could have saved them from whatever is coming, because she's seen it and she was afraid. So with that problem solved, and that warning out there, the children take their city and fold it like an old map and return to the vault. And following that, it did not take long for everything that was risen to quickly fall apart. For some, like Orchis, the nightmare was over and they stole credit for the victory. But for others, the rapid breakdown of the so-called tomorrow towns continued to confuse scientists and stretch international aid services to the limits. Only weeks ago, it was discovered that the unstable elements used to construct the futuristic metropolises are rapidly degrading into poisons, which means the fallen cities are leaving millions of people trapped in collapsing poisonous cities with nowhere to turn. So with the children defeated, issue number 4 of Children of the Vault comes to an end. And let me just say that this story was surprisingly good. Now don't get me wrong, it could have been better given how powerful the children are. But at the same time, this story was able to pull off a convincing victory and really flex how deadly Bishop and Cable could be. Because when I first heard this story was coming out, I thought it would be an event like Judgment Day, but instead we got a mini 4-issue run. But see, this goes to show that a good writer could make a compelling story with limited pages. But anyway, I love how this comic series brought back up the Dominion after hearing nothing about it in a while. And as for the aftermath, despite Orchis' approval rating rising, their military capabilities were dramatically cut down with the Forge destroyed. And as for the children, I don't think they are gone forever, because they volunteered to go back into the vault to protect their future, which means after they evolve a little more, they will be ready for round 2. Now with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.